An old man sat alone in the hospital corridor. The nurse wanted to help him, but the supervisor said, "Don't waste time on patients like him." The nurse was fired. The old man couldn't hold back his tears, but 2 hours later, a 4-star general entered the hospital, because that old man was his father. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in the sterile corridor of St. Mary's Medical Center. It was 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of dreary afternoon where time seemed to crawl through the antiseptic hallways. Room 314 had been silent for 3 days now, ever since they'd moved the patient to the general ward. The insurance had run out, they said. Private room privileges were for people who could afford them. If you believe respect doesn't have a price tag, hit like, comment, honor, and subscribe, because this story will show you what happens when dignity finally fights back. Colonel James Mitchell, 89 years old, sat hunched in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside his hospital bed. His weathered hands, scarred from decades of military service, gripped a faded photo of his son in dress uniform. The same son he hadn't spoken to in 3 years. The same son who didn't know his father was dying. Sarah Chen had been a nurse for 12 years. She'd seen everything. The grateful patients, the difficult families, the bureaucratic nightmares. But she'd never seen anything like the way the hospital staff treated Colonel Mitchell. He was just another old man to them, another bed to fill, another insurance claim to process. But Sarah saw something different. She saw the way he sat up straighter when the national anthem played on the television. She saw the medals tucked away in his bedside drawer. She saw the loneliness in his eyes that spoke of a man who'd given everything to his country and now sat forgotten in a hospital corridor. Room 314 again? Dr. Patricia Hawkins, the hospital supervisor, stood with her arms crossed as Sarah prepared Colonel Mitchell's medication. Her voice carried the sharp edge of authority mixed with impatience. "Yes, ma'am. Colonel Mitchell needs his heart medication every 4 hours and—" "Colonel," Dr. Hawkins interrupted with a dismissive laugh. "Look at his chart, nurse. He's uninsured. Medicare ran out last month. He's what we call a charity case now." Sarah's jaw tightened. "He's a veteran, Dr. Hawkins. He served 3 tours in Vietnam and now he's taking up space we need for paying patients." Dr. Hawkins snatched the medication tray from Sarah's hands. "From now on, he gets basic care only. No extras, no special attention, and certainly no more of your time than absolutely necessary." What Dr. Hawkins didn't know was that Colonel Mitchell had heard every word. His hearing wasn't what it used to be, but humiliation had a way of making even the quietest voices crystal clear. For the next 2 days, Sarah watched as Colonel Mitchell's condition deteriorated. Not medically, though that was concerning too, but emotionally. He stopped trying to make conversation. He stopped asking for help getting to the bathroom. He stopped eating the terrible hospital food altogether. On Thursday morning, Sarah found him staring out the window at the parking lot, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Colonel Mitchell? Are you in pain? Should I call the doctor?" He turned to her with eyes that had seen too much. "You know what hurts most, nurse? It's not the cancer. It's not even the loneliness. It's the feeling that everything I did, everything I sacrificed meant nothing. That I'm just another burden now." Sarah's heart broke. That afternoon, she did something that would change everything. She called the one number she found in his personal effects, a contact listed as David Mitchell, emergency only. The phone rang 6 times before a crisp, professional voice answered. General Mitchell speaking. General Mitchell? This is Sarah Chen. I'm a nurse at St. Mary's Medical Center. I'm calling about your father, Colonel James Mitchell. There was a long pause. When the voice came back, it was different. Softer, but with an undertone of something Sarah couldn't quite identify. My father? Is he all right? Sir, he's been admitted here for 3 weeks. He has stage 3 lung cancer and, well, sir, I think you should know that he's not being treated with the respect he deserves. Another pause. What do you mean? Sarah took a deep breath. Sir, with respect, your father is a war hero. He has 3 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star, but because his insurance ran out, the hospital administration is treating him like he's worthless. They've moved him to the general ward, cut his care to the bare minimum, and... She paused. Sir, he's giving up. He thinks nobody cares about him anymore. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for what felt like eternity. When General Mitchell finally spoke, his voice was steel wrapped in ice. Nurse Chen, I need you to listen very carefully. Do not let anyone discharge my father. Do not let anyone move him again. I will be there within 2 hours, and Nurse Chen, thank you for caring when others wouldn't. What Sarah didn't know was that Dr. Hawkins had been listening to her phone call. Hospital policy strictly prohibited staff from contacting patients' families without administrative approval. 30 minutes after Sarah hung up, she was called to the supervisor's office. Clear out your locker, Chen. You're terminated, effective immediately. Dr. Hawkins, You were just violating patient privacy laws and hospital policy. Security will escort you out. Sarah's hands shook as she packed her belongings. 12 years of service ended because she showed compassion to a dying veteran. As she walked past room 314 one last time, she saw Colonel Mitchell sitting in the same chair, staring at the same photo. She knocked softly. Colonel Mitchell? I just wanted to say goodbye. He looked up, confused. Goodbye? Are you going off shift? Sarah's throat tightened. No, sir. I've been fired for calling your son. The old man's eyes widened. You called David? Yes, sir. He's coming to see you. For the first time in weeks, Colonel Mitchell smiled. Thank you, nurse. You did more for me than you'll ever know. At exactly 4:30 p.m., the automatic doors of St. Mary's Medical Center slid open. The first thing people noticed wasn't the man himself, but the way everyone around him moved. His aide walked 2 steps behind and to the left. 2 security personnel flanked the entrance. The hospital's front desk fell silent. General David Mitchell stood 6 feet tall in his dress uniform, 4 stars gleaming on his shoulders. His face was a map of controlled emotion. Decades of military discipline warring with the guilt of 3 years of slints. Behind him walked Colonel Rodriguez, his chief of staff, and Dr. Amanda Foster, the chief medical officer from Walter Reed Army Medical Center. The receptionist, a young woman named Jessica who'd been on the job for only 6 months, looked up from her computer. Can I help you? General Mitchell's voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute authority. I'm here to see Colonel James Mitchell, room 314. I'm his son. Jessica's eyes widened as she took in the uniform, the stars, the gravity of the moment. Of course, sir. Right away, sir. But Dr. Hawkins had already been alerted. She appeared in the lobby within minutes. Her professional smile stretched thin over obvious nervousness. General Mitchell, I presume. I'm Dr. Patricia Hawkins, hospital supervisor. I understand you're here about your father. Dr. Hawkins. General Mitchell's acknowledgement was crisp, professional, and somehow threatening. I'd like to see my father immediately. Then I'd like to speak with whoever is responsible for his care. Dr. Hawkins gestured toward the elevator. Of course, though I should mention your father is in our general ward. Insurance limitations, you understand. The elevator ride was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. Dr. Hawkins fidgeted with her tablet, clearly uncomfortable with the military presence beside her. When the doors opened on the third floor, General Mitchell's expression darkened. The general ward was overcrowded, understaffed, and underfunded. Patients lined the corridors on gurneys. The smell of disinfectant couldn't quite mask the underlying odors of illness and neglect. And there, in the far corner, sat Colonel James Mitchell. The old man looked up as the group approached. For a moment, father and son simply stared at each other across 3 years of silence and hurt. Then Colonel Mitchell's face crumpled. David? How did you... what are you doing here? General Mitchell knelt beside his father's chair, his uniform creaking softly. A nurse called me, Dad. She said you needed me. But I thought... After our fight, I thought you never wanted to see me again. Never, Dad, never. The general's voice broke slightly. I've been a fool. A proud, stubborn fool. Dr. Hawkins cleared her throat. Perhaps we should discuss your father's care in private, General Mitchell? The general stood slowly, his eyes never leaving his father's face. Actually, Dr. Hawkins, I think we should discuss it right here in front of the man whose care you've been managing. He turned to Colonel Rodriguez. Colonel, I want a full medical evaluation of my father's condition and care. I want to know everything that's been done, everything that should have been done, and everything that wasn't done. Dr. Foster stepped forward, her own uniform crisp and professional. Colonel Mitchell, I'm Dr. Foster from Walter Reed. May I examine you? As Dr. Foster began her examination, General Mitchell's attention turned to Dr. Hawkins. Now, about the nurse who called me, Sarah Chen. I understand you fired her. Dr. Hawkins' face reddened. She violated hospital policy and patient privacy laws. I had no choice. No choice? The general's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt more dangerous than shouting. Let me tell you about having no choice, Dr. Hawkins. My father has 3 Purple Hearts and a Silver Star. He survived 3 tours in Vietnam. He's given more to this country than you'll ever know. And you treated him like garbage because his insurance ran out. Dr. Foster finished her examination and approached the general, her expression grave. Sir, I need to speak with you privately. They stepped into an empty room across the hall. When they returned 5 minutes later, General Mitchell's face was pale but determined. Dr. Hawkins, according to Dr. Foster's preliminary examination, my father should have been receiving a higher level of care. The medication schedule has been inadequate, his pain management insufficient, and his nutritional needs ignored. Dr. Hawkins began to protest, but the general held up a hand. Furthermore, I've just spoken with the hospital's chief administrator. As of this moment, my father is being transferred to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, where he will receive the care he deserves, at no cost to anyone. Colonel Mitchell looked up from his chair. David, I can't afford... Dad, you earned this. Every day you served, every sacrifice you made, every moment you put your country before yourself. You earned this." The old man's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted to know that what I did mattered, that I mattered. You matter to me, Dad. You always have. I'm sorry it took me so long to remember that." The transformation began immediately. Within an hour, Colonel Mitchell was being prepared for transport to Walter Reed. The hospital staff, suddenly aware of who they'd been treating, scrambled to provide better care. But it was too late for apologies. General Mitchell found Sarah Chen in the parking lot, loading her personal items into her car. She looked up, surprised to see him approaching. "Nurse Chen." "General Mitchell, how is your father?" "He's going to be fine, thanks to you." He paused. "I understand you were terminated for calling me." Sarah nodded. "It was worth it. Your father is a good man. He deserves better than what he was getting." "Yes, he does, and so do you." The general handed her a business card. "Walter Reed Army Medical Center is always looking for nurses who understand what service means. If you're interested, call this number. Ask for Dr. Foster." Sarah looked at the card, then back at the general. "You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance to work where caring for veterans isn't just a job. It's a calling, where nurses like you are valued, not fired." 3 months later, Colonel James Mitchell sat in a comfortable chair in the oncology ward at Walter Reed. His treatment was going well. The cancer was responding better than anyone had expected. But more importantly, he was surrounded by people who understood what his uniform had meant. Sarah Chen, now wearing the crisp uniform of a Walter Reed nurse, checked his vital signs with the same care she'd shown him at St. Mary's. But here that care was not only allowed, it was expected. "How are you feeling today, Colonel Mitchell?" "Much better, Nurse Chen, much better." General Mitchell visited every day. Father and son had found their way back to each other through the simple act of one nurse who chose compassion over policy. They talked about Vietnam, about the years of silence, about the future they almost didn't have. Dr. Hawkins had been quietly transferred to an administrative position with no patient contact. The hospital's policies were under review. Sarah's wrongful termination had sparked an investigation that reached all the way to the state medical board. But the real victory was simpler than all of that. It was in the smile on Colonel Mitchell's face when his son walked through the door. It was in the way the other veterans in the ward looked out for each other. It was in the knowledge that when one person chose to do the right thing, it could change everything. Colonel Mitchell kept the faded photo of his son in uniform, but now it sat beside a new picture. Father and son together, both in uniform, both proud, both home. If you believe that every veteran deserves dignity, that every person deserves compassion, and that sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do, hit like, comment, respect, and subscribe to Honor Stories. Because in a world that often forgets, we remember, and we make sure their stories are told.